Hi everyone, Sasha here from LongPlayVinyl. I hope you had great holidays and I hope you got some really good records as gifts for Christmas and around this holiday season. Today I'd like to make a video about my secondary vinyl setup, because if you've watched some of the previous videos, you know that I have an old Technics Self 1200 as my record player, and recently, actually a few months ago, I got another record player simply because I moved to a bigger place and now I am able to have two different setups. One is in the basement and the second setup is upstairs where we are filming this video right now. The main goal actually of showing off this whole setup was to explain that I got it for about $45 Canadian, which is like 35 bucks US, and I'm gonna show you exactly what I have within that setup. Pretty much everything was, everything was purchased used, because you can't buy new stuff at these prices. And I want to point out that a lot of people who are getting into vinyl or music in general, they want to hear something a little bit better sound. They often say that they can't afford a good setup, they can't afford a decent turntable or a receiver or even speakers, so they end up buying these all-in-one junk packages for $100 or more for something that's really not worth it, in my opinion. If I could get all of that I got for under $50, you certainly can. You just have to be patient a little bit. You have to look through the local Craigslist ads, Facebook Marketplace, you have to go to thrift stores, garage sales, and whatever it takes, but you will end up finding decent quality vintage usually, or simply old equipment that's going to play much better than those $100, even $200 solutions that you find brand new in stores. Alright, so it all begins with the receiver that I found at a thrift store for about $10 Canadian. It's a Kenwood KR-2120. I know these receivers were considered ugly by many people. I find that it's actually pretty good looking. That's the actual receiver. That's the receiver that I got at a thrift store for $10. It works well. The only thing that I had to do when I got it was, of course, to clean the pots, because it was making that crackling noise when you would turn some of the knobs. So that was done, some deoxit, and just a few minutes of work got rid of all those problems. So that was the very first and main piece of the setup, of course, the receiver. It's not the greatest, it's not the best out there, but for $10 it actually sounds pretty sweet, and it's got all the capabilities that I want in a secondary setup. Next up, the turntable. Right here I've got a Bang and Olufsen Bogram RX. This turntable was also found at a thrift store. I paid $15 Canadian for it. It came with two carts. One of them seems brand new and another one is used. I'm just assuming, because one of them looks like it has never been touched, and the other one, it has kind of fingerprints on it, so I figured that's the one that was used. And what's really cool, that when they pulled out this record table at a thrift store, it was kind of packaged with packing tape, and it had a styrofoam right here on top holding the platter. The platter was not attached to the table itself, it was on top of the styrofoam. It has a cover, of course. The cart was not attached, but it came with this little box right here with two MMC4 carts, and I know these carts alone go for like $200–300 on eBay, which is really cool that I found them with this turntable. And it came with a record brush, which I don't have here right now, but it did come with an extra record brush, which was really cool. And a little bit off topic, there's a guy at the thrift store that I often go to that's in my neighborhood, and I noticed that he often buys vintage electronics, and especially when it comes to turntables and receivers, and he was trying to persuade me that this turntable was a piece of junk because it didn't have the cart attached to it, although he clearly saw that this box was attached to the cover. He just wanted to grab it instead of me, but of course I didn't cave in. So this table was $15 Canadian. It's in mint condition. It plays beautifully. It's automatic, which is pretty good for a secondary setup. The only problem with this table is that the lid is missing a piece that's holding it, like right back here. So I can't have the lid attached to the table and simply lift it up if I want to play music and leave it up. I have to either remove it completely or put it back on completely, which is not a big problem for me. I really don't mind. And sometimes when I have people over and I don't want people touching my records, so I actually put the lid on top of the player while the music is playing. Once again, there is supposed to be some piece holding it together. The table didn't come with it, but I don't mind. For $15, it was a great score in my books. Now, last but not least, I have this set of Paradigm speakers. These are really high quality Canadian speakers, and I got them for about $20. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, of course. I got 2 sets of these speakers for $150 off of Facebook Marketplace, and I managed to sell the second set for $130, and I kept the second set for myself, which means that I pretty much got them for $20. Now, I know you could buy cheaper speakers at thrift stores sometimes, but I thought that these Paradigm speakers sound amazing and I just had to have them. So there you go, $20 for the speakers, $15 for the turntable, and $10 for the receiver. And I've got my $45 vinyl setup, which sounds great, which looks great, and I'm simply happy with it, especially this being my secondary setup. To conclude this video, you probably aren't going to find this kind of setup all together in one place in one day. You'll have to be patient, you'll have to look out for different deals, and you'll have to go to different stores, because there is a Salvation Army not far from me, and they seriously overprice all the vintage electronics. They're asking crazy prices for electronics that don't even power on, which is completely ridiculous. But I have another smaller thrift store which is close to me, and they usually price their turntables at $10 to $15, sometimes $20 at the very maximum. I have never found a turntable actually there that was more than $15. The same goes for speakers. Most of the speakers are from $10 to $25 depending on the speakers, and receivers as well. Most of the receivers are from $10 to $15. As I mentioned, some thrift stores have higher prices, some have lower prices. The same goes for other online marketplaces, the same as flea markets and garage sales. You'll often find really good deals. You just have to be proactive and you have to search for them. You could also let all of your friends know that you are looking for turntables and vintage receivers, and most of them will have an old lady that they know, a neighbor or maybe a grandmother or parents that have an old receiver, that have an amazing pair of speakers and have an amazing turntable hidden somewhere in the garage or in the attic or somewhere that nobody has touched for years and years, and they just want to get rid of it. And in many cases they would be happy to give it to you for free, but you have to put that information out there. You have to let people know that you're looking for vintage electronics and old audio equipment, and eventually you'll have a pretty good setup for a very, very low amount of money. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video. We will be making more videos throughout this year, so make sure to subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment below if you have anything to add, or if you want to share your stories. Tell us what kind of old equipment you have found at garage sales and thrift stores. Tell us what kind of setup you're running at home. And if you haven't checked out our Crossley setup video, which got quite a few views and people seem to get a good laugh out of it, I'll link to it in the description below, as well as here probably. So check it out. Just promise that you'll watch the whole thing entirely before leaving a comment under that video. Alright, once again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.